¿Quieres que empiece ya?
Sí. Ahora sí.
Así va a ver la pared. It's a mission.
No.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, I would prefer if you researched it, written things. You pose that question. Think about it.
No, estás bien. No, no, estás
Instead of just
bien.
talking off the top of their head. Like the right guy. Sure, let's do it. So, how are you guys doing with the names? Who thinks they know everybody's name?
Almost.
Willa probably does, right? Willa, I want you to quiet down in class for now. So disruptive around here. It's tough to teach, okay? All right, well, let's try it again for everybody's benefit, too. So, say your name and then repeat it. Paul.
Paul.
Tiffany.
Tiffany.
Claudia.
Claudia. Willa. Janelle. Megan. Vanessa. Romina. Shelley. Burdell. Vanessa. Ariana. Abby. Luis.
And then who's not here? Emily.
Gabby.
Gabby. Good. Keep going on that. So by the end, everybody should know each other. The last day. All right, so we had a couple of requests to have some clearing some issues. So where are we at with that?
I created a Facebook page, a Facebook group for all of us to be able to communicate. It's called the Funky Monkeys.
Awesome.
So I've got about half of us in the group. The other half I've sent some requests. Some people I couldn't find on Facebook, so I'm going to read off who I don't yet have. I don't yet have Romina. I don't yet have Brooke, who's not here. Shelley, I did send you a request though. Vanessa. Ariana, oh no, I got Ariana. Emily, I do have, sorry. Vanessa Ramirez. Gabby, who's also not here. Tiffany, and Megan.
So what do they need to do? Go on Facebook?
If you do not have one, just create one. You don't have to make it anything special because I know some of you, took it off for personal reasons. And then just search me by my name. I'm not hard to find. No one else has my name. And then I'll accept you and then add you to the group.
How about me? Am I in it?
I sent you a request.
Okay, that's good. What happens is I never go on Facebook, and my best friend from college send me friend requests. And then I blow it off for 6 months, and I don't even know. And then they think we're not friends anymore. And stuff like that happens. Does that ever happen to you guys? If you're not on it? So if you're not on it, if you heard your name, go on there and let's try and get this thing together. That'll be more fun for everybody, and we can share it. You'll learn better and enjoy it more too. So thank you for doing that, Riddell. That was great. Good. Now, Abby, what were you talking about? You would have a request.
Well, I'm just curious to get some people's feedback. I'm working on a project right now for Branding and Wellness Center. It's in the UK. And I was just kind of curious to know what well-being means to you guys. We're clearly of a similar mindset, and I'm just curious to kind of have an understanding of what well-being is to you.
Yeah, so I
Obviously,
said we're not going to spend any time discussing that here because we just spent the whole rest of the day talking about stuff like that, and it's cool. So what I would like you to do for Abby is, if you're interested in this project, it's not, I wouldn't say it's mandatory, just like it wouldn't be mandatory that you have to contribute to talking in the group. Write it down. Write down a paragraph, a sentence or two about what well-being means to you, and then you could read it in the group, okay? She's branding a wellness centers in the UK, so if you want, okay? So for next weekend, just write that down. Think about it, maybe research it if you want, or just come up with your own idea and write it down. So we're not just talking off the top of our head.
We really don't feel like it's nothing formal. Like,
Right.
You don't have to really write it's not like an essay or anything. You can just could be a thought, it could be a word,
It could be a
sentence,
tagline.
could
It
be
could
a
be like a
sketch, it could be anything.
like Green Monkey's
How do you
tagline
express that?
is live in balance. So that was a tagline that kind of came out of what well-being means to people. Yes, same type of thing.
Yeah.
All right, we'll help you with that. Okay, great. Now, Elaine, how was that class? Did she teach you a class or did she talk a lot?
Both.
At the end, she taught you a class, though?
Yeah.
Kind of. An hour long or something like that? Or less?
It was like for all people.
Right, okay. All right, that's fair. But did
But
she talk a
she's,
lot?
she's really cool.
Yeah.
She's really
So knowledgeable. Even just to have that is worth it.
Yeah.
Because you can attend her classes. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 o'clock. So I want you to attend her classes. It's to be attended and also go to a power yoga session as well, because you see it's not workout yoga.
Right.
It's not workout yoga. But it's a knowledge to, help people and heal them.
How often do you have to do that kind of yoga to be healed though? Like,
You get a benefit from one session. If you're hurting, the very first time you go to yoga, if you do it right, you should feel a little bit better right then. So that's the motivation. It's not that you have to do 10 sessions before you feel any better. You know what I'm saying?
No, but we work on the lower back.
Yeah.
Recent poses, and I have lower back things chronic.
Yes.
And it went down like 80%.
Well, listen to her. That's who it's for right
I
there.
mean, there is like, I still
Yeah.
feel a little bit, but for months I've been having really intense lower back pain and those poses that I was kind of, what are we doing here? It was really a nice learning experience, but like I said, we don't feel the physical impact. But yeah, after the class, I don't have the, kind of
That's
I want to talk
impressive.
to her more when we are later today. I want to ask her.
Yeah, ask her. Did you guys ask questions?
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Part of the reason I kind of leave is so you don't feel inhibited about asking any question. You guys just be total neophyte students. Don't expect, just fire questions at these teachers, okay? And also, the teacher doesn't edit their response. They just give you the direct answer. They don't edit it to what Paul might think is correct or something like that. So ask questions. That's good. Now, what happened with your back then?
No, I suffered from sciatica, and last night I started having some pain, and I did some of the moves that she showed us, and I have nothing today. Like, I woke up perfectly fine.
What moves did she show you?
Where we put this like under our pelvic bone and kind of just lay there with our butt lifted. It was really comfortable.
Let's see it. Let move your books and stuff. Let me see what you're talking about.
So it was just really simple. Like this. That was it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's awesome.
It felt so great.
So in the Iyengar tradition of yoga, remember there's the straps and the props and stuff like that, and they do the poses as prescribed by Iyengar for certain effects. But there was another kind of yoga that he invented called restorative yoga, and other people have even spun off more on that, and that's what that comes from. So restorative yoga is using these bolsters and laying down. It's only laying down poses where you don't have to do anything at all. There's no effort being made by you, not like warrior two or downward dog, but you're in a yoga pose that's having an effect on you. So remember last weekend on end of Sunday how we finished, when you guys were like this.
We actually did that too.
Yeah, we did.
We did this too. This is Viparita Karani, it's still leg pose. So,
But you put like bolsters and
but you guys had stuff underneath here and
Underneath
all
here
kinds of
and
stuff like
back.
that, back and all kinds of stuff. Yes, you should find it. And I was showing you, you could put your feet like this. Did you guys experiment with this?
Yeah.
It's kind of nice. And then you can straddle it like that, and then you can do straight up and down. Did she put any weight on your feet?
Yeah.
She just put
That's
a lot.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you feel that? It pushes your femur bone right down into the hip socket. Did anybody feel that? If you put a block and then a weight on top of that
Just
block,
put a
you don't have the
block,
weight.
sure.
Yeah, I've done it just a very few times. Somebody has to do it for you. You can't do it yourself. But then that pose of laying over your stomach, Janelle, and then there's in restorative yoga, certainly there would be these other back bends, a lot of these type of back bends here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that.
You did these. So she was teaching you some parts of what they call restorative yoga, which is, we'll go a little bit further into it, and I'll teach you a class in it. But it's a kind of yoga where you just lay around on the floor on bolsters, and you do breathing through the nose. Was she telling you inhale, nose, exhale, nose?
Yeah.
So the breathing is still the same. Deep breathing slows everything down. And the fact is, when you're up, if you're here, your muscles have to tense in order to get the benefit of it. So the restorative yoga, you don't want that at all. You want to completely relax. No bandhas, no worrying about neutral spine or anything, right? You just lay there. There's some twists.
It's also like therapy,
You know, there's some of these type of things, just super easy. And it's very de-stressing for people. It's not a big deal in Miami Beach, really, or Miami, because people are so workout-oriented down here. But in New York City, there's teachers that just teach restorative yoga, and stressed out people after work just lay around in like carpeted rooms that are dimly lit with a really nice smell to them of aromatherapy, and do these bolsters. And after about 45 minutes, you feel fantastic. You just feel great.
I think it's something nice to, like, if you're in, like, power yoga and all that stuff, but it's nice to throw that in maybe once a week.
Correct. Correct. So that's what this teacher training is all about. So now you've been kind of exposed to that. So some of you, maybe not right away, but if you go on to be teachers, you might find yourself living in some other city or some other community, and you know you can teach your vinyasa yoga. That's for sure going to be your bread and butter, obviously. But you could start a restorative yoga class and just put together a little sequence. We'll work on a sequence in here that you could all just write down and take with you. And you got that in your pocket then. You could teach restorative yoga. And then it's very helpful if you get a private with somebody who's like 78 years old and you know they can't do anything, that type of stuff. It's totally different. I think it's best to do it in carpeted rooms. I like real that squishy carpeting. It's really soft with the bolsters.
I had remember when I had sciatic pain?
Yes.
Sciatic pain, and
In fact, I sent my friend to Mano today.
So I was suffering from severe sciatic pain like 1 year ago. I couldn't sit down for more than 10 minutes. So I started to come to yoga. I kept coming to yoga, but it was just stressing the sciatic nerve out. So I talked to Paul, and he recommended me to go to this guy called Mano. He's also a yoga teacher. He's like his studio is called Ayama Yoga. It's in 163rd. He's really knowledgeable. And I went to therapy, and they did me an MRI. My back was totally fine. It turns out it was my piriformis muscle, which she was talking about yesterday, right? So my sciatic nerve was being pressed by my piriformis muscle because I have very tight hips. So I started going to normal therapy, and it wasn't really helping out. And then I went with Mano, and this guy was so knowledgeable in terms of how to stretch the body into therapeutic ways, and it just made it all better. I started.
He put you on an infrared bed too,
He put
right?
me in an infrared bed with this cut stones, and then he would stretch me out in this, and it helped me learn a lot about how the body works and how you have to treat it in order to make that pain go away. So in a way, it was therapeutic yoga, like the one we were doing yesterday, and it was healing yoga. It was so the power. I mean, like you told me that's never gonna go away. Like yoga's always gonna exist because there's always people that are gonna have pain.
Correct.
That are gonna need help to get through that pain, and the best way to do that is to stretch and strengthen those muscles. So that's kind of what we were doing yesterday.
Yeah,
it's
and the
powerful.
sciatic loves the heat.
Yeah.
That's not like, don't ice it if you have sciatica. Hot pad, warmth. And he has an infrared bed that heats up your whole body evenly. So it's not just your leg that gets all hot, your whole body. And you stay on it for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and you're just so warm from the inside out. And then he stretches you and puts you in certain poses that he knows. And he can cure people from sciatica. It takes a couple trips, but he can cure it.
Can we get
You
the
want to do it?
contact?
Mano, M-A-N-O, and Ayama Yoga, A-Y-A.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, maybe I can bring him in here. I'll call him up. I'll hire him to teach you a little part of the teacher training.
Yeah.
You know what's fun? I think I was very positive.
He did my teacher training, the third one I ever
almost
did.
went to this training.
Oh, really?
How many
Yeah.
teacher trainings have you done?
This is the 39th.
39? Oh, wow.
So Mano was in the this third.
You
Yeah,
respect
Liz
so
said
well.
that she also does teacher training.
Elaine was doing.
His class is very different. The class that I took, it was very therapeutic.
Yeah, I'll hire him so you guys can meet him. He's a great guy. Who knows Mono? You guys know. All right, so cool. So anyway, so what else about that session with Elaine now? What? Give me some more feedback about that.
She mentioned if you do sciatic pain that you shouldn't like move, bend over, forward, or so I wasn't sure. Did you I skip that during a power yoga? Or?
If you bend forward, what's the answer to her question?
Neutral spine.
If you are in the neutral position,
I
you
always
should
feel my
do
sciatica.
forward bends, but you have to do it exactly right and learn what that is. There's no rounding into forward bends any longer. So you're safe to do it if you do it exactly right.
Because
That
I'm
would be
not
the
always
answer.
suffering from it. It comes and goes.
Right.
You know.
And you got to figure out if it's due to forward bending or backward bending,
Okay.
because some people it varies. But ask Elaine again about that today. Sciatica, lower back pain and stuff, and is forward bending a problem? Why is forward bending a problem? Why is back bending a problem? Those kind of answers should be interesting to you. So what else about that session?
Heal, like forever?
No.
Once you're healed.
You know, you can ask her about that. It seems to come and go with people. Yeah, it can be healed. It can be healed. It can be. You can go years without. Who has never felt sciatica? So there you go. The majority of the people have never
You
felt
guys
it.
are lucky.
You're lucky.
You know. I have it right now for sure. I feel it. It was bad for me about a month ago.
Yeah.
It's horrible when you can't sleep, but you're
Yeah.
exhausted. It's
Yeah.
torture.
It
It's absolute torture. You can't sleep, and yet you're just walking around. You're like, you can't sit down, and you're so tired. In the middle of the night, it's like 3 in the morning.
Anyone can get it though?
I
Yeah.
got mine
I
from
think
like
it depends on
undressing.
where the
I bent
muscle
over
is.
once. I was 20 years old, bent over like to undress, and that was it. Like I've had it since then. It happened
Like
like
that.
that.
I had a friend, he was leaning over, like tweezing a nostril hair out of his nose, like, and he felt something.
Yeah. It just
And it was sciatica really, really bad.
Change
For
that
like
to
2
two
weeks, he
weeks.
was on the couch, like, oh! And he was pulling a nose hair out.
yeah.
What?
Tighten
That's
up.
painful enough.
So it can hit you, but it can be from overworking something and
Yeah.
imbalance. You know how I triggered it? Doing a whole bunch of yard work and gardening, like
Yeah.
digging holes to plant things, and that digging with the shovel, bending over a lot, just abusing the rules of asymmetrical spine and neutral spine, and just but having fun in my garden. But like after 3 days of that, I had sciatica, stuff like that happens. And then what happens is it gets triggered by air conditioning, which at night, if you're trying to sleep in Florida, you need the AC blasting in full blast, right? That tightens everything up. But you need that to sleep. So the sciatica loves heat. It loves hotness to stay warm. All right, so that's good. So let me see what else about Elaine. What about her teaching characteristics? What types of things did she do in terms of handling the class as a teacher that you were impressed by?
She's strict, but she's friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
Knowledgeable.
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's tough, but she's
Strict but
smiling,
friendly. That's a
like,
great compliment to a yoga teacher. That's a very, very good way to describe it. That's a compliment.
She didn't let like the class start talking about chakras because she told us we could see them,
Yeah, we all
like the colors, and everyone was like, oh, I want to find out. She's like, we're not going there, you know, like don't lose the class.
So she kept the focus.
Yeah.
That's a good teacher too. Yeah, because you guys wanted to hijack the conversation.
Yeah.
Fun spiritual talk.
Yeah.
She's very spiritual.
Yeah, she's
Very spiritual person. I mean, did you get a sense that she's a master teacher, no question. Her confidence, right?
Yeah.
Based on her knowledge and her experience. But she's friendly and nice too.
Yeah.
Not-
Her energy was really awesome.
Yeah.
I think it has a very positive, it's a positive compliment for the teacher training
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's
overall.
overall definitely. That's why we put her the first weekend too. It's not workout yoga. We're gonna do plenty of workout yoga. We're gonna do a lot of work. When we start to teach the classes that you guys teach, we're gonna do 3 one-hour classes in a row. And everybody's gonna do vinyasa yoga then.
Yeah.
So we're going to be, but that's at the end of the course. You see what I'm saying? Pace yourself. Don't kill yourself. This is the time to get your injuries fixed. These people. If anybody wants to ask her about the wrist too, because we had some discussions about that. And if you feel like you're not getting what you want to know from her, raise your hand and ask a question and kind of direct the conversation. And she's open to it, except for chakras, I guess. But about the anatomy, the alignment, the physical practice, that's what to pick her brain about this weekend. And then you can take her class anytime. She's always around. But what else about the way she, what did she do that, like, to handle the group what little things did she do?
She wanted to know a little bit about her personal history.
She went around and asked everybody's name, and she's pretty good at remembering the names, right?
She was.
She makes a very strong effort towards remembering the names.
I love the fact that she took a picture of, every.
Each one of us with our cell phones.
That's-
Poses, so we all had them.
That's cool.
That's
That's
a
great
great-
teaching,
yeah,
right? That's
a
using
way to
technology
remember.
and stuff. Cool.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
I like that.
She also made us try to know the Sanskrit names for it.
That's true. Did she
pose.
say, Utthita Trikonasana? Repeat after me, please.
3 times.
Was it like that? That's the way it was? Yeah,
Right.
that's the way she is.
Actually, but I had trouble with British accent.
Yeah.
That one in Sanskrit, it was too much.
Did you ever have any trouble hearing her?
No.
I had a little
She
bit
talks,
of far.
when you were at your
Fast.
that's a
I
big
think
room
she
and
talks
she's
a
talking,
little
she talks
fast.
pretty loud.
I
It was
almost
fast,
remember
I just
one
thought she
thing,
was a
it's
little
that
fast.
I took hardly any notes down, but she moved so fast.
Yeah.
That's the way this training's gonna be. We could stay with 6 weeks with her, picking her brain, but it moves on. We just move. It's just an introduction to that. She goes around and asks everybody about their injury history. And you have to be a therapeutically inclined teacher to do that. She cares about your injury and wants to help you with that. I don't recommend that you guys really do that yet. I don't think you guys are ready for that yet. And it implies that if you tell me that you have a left knee that was hurt and you actually had surgery on it, I kind of have to remember that about you. And I'm not the teacher who can do that. I can't pay attention in that detail to each person's little thing, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's good because she can. She looks at you and remembers that you had a hurt, back or something. So I don't recommend that you guys get into that in the very beginning. It's a different level. In your privates, for sure. One-on-one work, yes. But not in the group class where you try and figure out everybody's ailment. And the other thing that implies, which I disagree with, I have to say, is it implies that the teacher should know what I'm feeling in the pose. It implies that the teacher should know or understand what I'm feeling in the pose, right? Do they? No, they have no access to that whatsoever. The only access they have is their own direct experience when they have done the pose where they feel it in their body. And that's what we do. I go into Warrior 2 and I go, wow, this really strengthens my upper right thigh. Then when I go to teach, I go, this strengthens your upper right thigh. That's all I said, because I knew that I did it. But there's no way, you might not be feeling it there at all in that moment. You might be feeling it someplace else, and I don't know that. So if you go around and say, there's this type of student that goes to those kind of yoga classes that's a bit of a hypochondriac. They kind of like to get the attention put on their body and spend time in a group talking about their ailments and their surgeries and their injuries and stuff like that. You can sometimes, Elaine, I'm sure, has run into countless people like that. But they might want to try to hijack the situation, you know what I'm saying? It kind of becomes more about them and their body. So you got to watch out for that. And as a newer teacher, you won't be able to see that coming. You'll just think, I'm trying to help this nice person. And the rest of the group is just like, again? You know what I'm saying? So I highly recommend that you guys tell the people something along the lines of in the beginning, hey, my intention is for you guys to have wellness. And this is what that means to me. If something doesn't feel right, please take care of yourself and get out of it. I don't know what you're feeling in your body. So if you think something's hurting you, you really have to get out of it and not wait for me to tell you to get out of it. I don't know. Or let me know right away. This hurts here. That's fair. You could say that. You see what I'm saying about? That's how you kind of set up the room. So she does that because that's her style, that's what she's worked, that's her level. But you guys should give the people back 100% of the responsibility of what they feel in the poses to themselves. It's not the teacher's job. Now, you guys should never be reckless with somebody else's body. They're trusting you to take them through a sequence. So you have to be trustworthy, and that's why we're going to learn about alignment and about sequencing too. But you can. All right, so that's good. Elaine, and then we let's switch back to our conversation about the 8 limbs. Did you have any more thought on that? Remember we went in there and we chanted yama, yama, niyama, niyama, asana. I think we should go through our chants again, and then we'll talk about it again. We'll repeat that same lecture right there, okay? So prepare to chant. I also see some of you guys get to sit on the wall, and some of you never do. So just switch it around. If these girls' back starts to give out, you switch with them occasionally, you know. Don't ever ask me to switch with you, but you know. No, I'll sit in there. All right, so the chanting, how's it working out for you? It's singing. Who doesn't love to sing in our group, right? We're singing songs about yoga that are based about love and enlightenment. Do you forgive yourself for having whatever voice comes out?
Yeah.
Good. Don't worry about it. This is not about having a great voice or anything like that. Listen to me. I'm croaking out these mantras. But what's more important than that? What is more important than the beauty of your voice in chanting mantras? What? The feelings of it. What other words would you say? The intention. What you bring to it. The love. You know, the enthusiasm to it. It's singing words that have been sung by millions of people over the years who have the same intention. We want to know God. We want to know what's good. We want to feel actual joy and love in our hearts. We want to be devoted, spiritually, you know, awe-stricken people. You know, we want to feel that. So that it's a prayer for that to different deities. You know. So put your love into it. If that's what bhakti is, that's the bhakti, the devotional love element to chanting mantras. Sometimes it might help if you have a loved one, if somebody, a family member or a friend helped you, you can kind of dedicate the chanting to them and their healing. That works just as good. If you dedicate your chanting to somebody else, like a prayer, does that detract from the healing energy for yourself? No, it enhances it. That's the karma yoga aspect. See how that would work? That could be considered the karma yoga aspect of chanting. You could dedicate it to somebody else. So that is selfless service. It's not digging a well, but you're sending your good vibrations out. Karma yoga. And then the Raja Yoga is the royal path. We're sitting up. You're not allowed to chant. You're not allowed to go, okay, let's start to chant. Om Namah Shivaya. Why is this less effective energetically than sitting up?
So the spine needs to be
Because the spine, and then more specifically, what
Your crown chakra.
chakras, and the serious chakras can be open. We'll talk about that more later. I can see that's a tantalizing teaser to drop. So you sit up, that's the Raja Yoga. This is an asana. You sit in an asana from Raja Yoga. So you see the Bhakti Yoga's there, the devotional love. The Karma Yoga, if you dedicate it to somebody else. The Raja Yoga is sitting here. It's Mantra Yoga or Laya Yoga. Remember that those 40 different kinds? They talked about chanting mantras. In and of itself, it's a full yoga itself.
you're more present.
And then what's the Jnana Yoga? What would be the Jnana Yoga that's present in it?
You're aware of hearing.
Because you're aware that you're aware, and you're not chanting a mantra as a separate individual anymore. The jhana can be there as well. You're just doing it purely because that's what's happening. You're no longer thinking there's a big gain for me. You're going to get high because it does make you feel high. But you also see through kind of the me thought into the... All right, perfect. You got it. All right. It's always good to start with the Om. So, nice big inhale. All in repeat. Yama. Niyama. Asana. Pranayama. Pratyahara. Udana. Dhyana. Samadhi. 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 Alright, silently repeat that cadence in your head once or twice. Okay, the yamas. Ahimsa. Satya. Asteya. Brahmacharya. Parigraha. 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 Try and say it twice through in your own head. Santosha, Tapas, Sadhyana, Ishvara Pranidhana, attempt the mental cadence on your own. Opening our eyes now. Do you feel the effect? Each time I want you to be conscious of the effect. How do you know? Try and think of some words for how you feel right now as opposed to when we started. Calmer, but lighter, light, relaxed. Relaxed. Maybe less cerebral, right? You're less interested in looking at your book and thinking of an idea. Less intellectualization, just a little more trust. Space out of this. Right? All right, but the ability to focus too. So, the ohms, see how we use the ohms in between those? That last one was great, right? Did you feel the calmness of that? That was a really nice ohm. So the ohms. You don't always have to say, and now we're going to do an ohm. You know what I'm saying? Just at a normal place, you can inhale and then ohm, and it's implied that anybody who wants to join you can join you. Do you agree?
Yeah.
And it's not, it's a little nicer because there's less words. At that point in time, sound is so refined that for somebody to go back into communicating into words, it's almost a little harsh. You know what I'm saying? Even if they're very sweet. So you try to talk sweet during that time, but then you can sound like a listening too.
Okay, now.
So, where did we get to? Yamas, what does that mean overall? What are the yamas? Those are like ethics, how everybody should behave. If you universal ethics.
Sorry, just to go back.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Ashtanga yoga,
Yeah.
it's I still don't get what the core of Ashtanga yoga. Obviously, it's the 8 limbs.
Yeah.
The type of the 8 limbs.
Right.
But what type of?
At some point, like I guess probably a couple of hundred years after Christ, Common Era, a couple hundred years, like the 2nd century, like 1800 years ago, supposedly, there was this either person or council, we don't know, named Patanjali, and they wrote something called the Yoga Sutras. Sutra means thread. So there's 178 sentences about this is what yoga is, this is yoga, and it defines a lot of things. In that 178, Patanjali gave the 8 limbs, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama. He wrote that. He wrote the yoga, this yoga consists of 8 limbs. Yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. It's in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, but it's not the only thing that it's about. We kind of extricated that as the instruction manual of Raja Yoga. And this is what it is. So, Ashto means 8. The number 8 in Sanskrit. Anga means limb. So this is the 8 limbs, Ashtanga Yoga. Traditionally. Now, there's an Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga, which is of Sri K. Patabi Joyce. We're going to be doing Ashtanga Yoga. Raise your hand if you've ever done Ashtanga Yoga with the primary sequence. You know what I'm talking about, the primary series?
I wouldn't know if I've done it.
You guys might not have done it, but we're going to... So there's a certain brand of yoga called Ashtanga Yoga, but this is the original Patanjali Ashtanga Yoga from the Yoga Sutras, and it's a philosophy.
But it's more of a
It's more of a
philosophy,
philosophy.
it's not a practice.
But this is the only place that asana is really mentioned in any ancient scriptures of
That's meditation.
of Hinduism. As a path to meditation, yes, as a preparation of the body for meditation. Correct.
But not a physical practice.
Correct, but not a long, intricate physical practice with sequences like we've turned it into. That was not what this used to be 1,800 years ago. They didn't have power yoga back then. They didn't have general therapeutic yoga or Iyengar yoga. See what I mean? None of that was invented. Don't think that that's all ancient. That's it. Like I keep saying, that was in the past 70 years, 60 years. All asana. But this is the only place that the asana is referenced. You don't see the asana referenced in the Bhagavad Gita when they talk about jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, Arjuna when they talk about the deities, Vishnu and Brahma and all you don't hear them talking about asana except for in Hatha yoga, Raja tradition.
Hatha or Ashtanga?
Hatha, Ashtanga yoga is underneath Hatha yoga. It's part of the forceful method.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was the other way.
The other way around. No, the other way around. Yes, it's the other way around. Correct. Correct. The Hatha yoga is underneath this because this says asana.
Yeah.
So all forms of asana would be Hatha yoga. And then the subcategory of that would be Bikram yoga, Ashtanga yoga, Shivananda yoga, Easy Does It yoga, Vinyasa yoga. Those are all Hatha yogas underneath Raja yoga. Definitely. Yes, it was the other way around. Correct. So,
Thank you.
yes, and so we have these ethical disciplines. So that this is saying that this applies to everybody. That's what this is trying to do. In that way, it's almost like a religion, right? Isn't that what religions try to do? They say this is, but yoga is trying to be a universal spirituality that applies to all human beings. So, I mean, these are just familiar things about the sins of humanity, right? That we're very used to, huh? It is, but remember, yoga and Hinduism are not exactly the same thing. They're very
But it's
close.
just a branch of the Hinduism.
Yoga, no.
But all what we've been going through,
There's close connections, but there are certain of those 40
it has
yogas.
evolved, but it started.
Yes, absolutely, yes, it did. But it's trying to say Hinduism is a religion, right? And that's the religion of India. And they have the deities like Ganesha and Hanuman and stuff like that. So and their scripture is the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Lord. That's their Bible, so to speak. And that's the stories of Arjuna and Krishna and these deities and gods and so forth and that type of stuff. So that's all stories. That's all conceptualized teaching. You know what I'm saying? There is teachings about love and oneness in there, definitely, like what you would consider yoga teachings, definitely. But yoga also could say, okay, there's another kind of yoga that's strictly the science of it. Your body has muscles, it has blood flowing, you breathe oxygen. The pranayama yoga applies to every single person who breathes oxygen on this planet, right? So in that context, it doesn't have anything to do with Hinduism. You see what I'm saying? It just has to do with, if you have a physical body, how you breathe is going to, influence how you feel. See that? So you can try and separate the two out. You can. But we chant the mantras. The mantras are in Sanskrit. That's the language of India. There's a lot of carryover too. So, it's like the 10 Commandments of yoga, it reminds me of rules, okay? So let's go over the rules then. Ahimsa, non-harming. To what would this apply? Harming of what? Everything, basically, right? People? Should you harm people? No. How about animals?
No.
Okay, so you have to be a vegan, right? Not even eating leather or belts or shoes. Or leather coats. No, fashion goes out the window. You become hemp girl.
Hemp shoes.
So how do you reconcile that? How do you reconcile that? Here's Patanjali in yoga, scriptures. Oh, my yoga teacher told me everything Patanjali said you have to learn. Oh, okay, all right. Non-harming. Shoot. I like ribs, burger, steak. So all of a sudden, you're back in this confusion, right? That he talked about, this maze of false ideas and confusion. So how would you approach that? It was already dead when you bought it. But these people are faster than that. They're going, but because you wanted to buy it and did buy it, that creates the demand that will make the people kill the animals. That's what their argument would be. Nice try, though. I like that argument. Nice try. They'll even argue, Megan, that you should, raise your own animals humanely and slaughter them yourself, like run in the backyard and catch a chicken, and chop its head off and kill fluff the flesh. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so there's all different levels. Some people might say, well, if the animals were raised and slaughtered humanely, free range, organic, then that's okay, right? So there's levels, right? But what's the ultimate level? I mean, what if there's no interpretation? What does it mean? Ahimsa. It means you got to be a vegan. So anyway, you're going to run up against a lot of beliefs like that in the yoga world, lots of them. And that belief eventually becomes an obstacle to your enlightenment. It doesn't help lead to it. You're going to have to, it's a false belief that there's some, and the belief is like this, there's some threat to what is. There's some threat to reality. There's anything that can be threatened can't be reality by definition, okay? So if you perceive a threat to animals or the planet, they don't fit the definition of what reality is then. You see what I'm saying? By definition, what is real cannot be threatened. It's real, it exists. It's not changing or gone, comes and goes. That wouldn't fit the definition.
So a lot of this is just preconceptions.
That's what I'm saying. This is a belief system based kind of yoga, and in my opinion, it confuses people. That's the point that I'm eventually going to come to. But first, it's necessary for you guys to feel confused about it. So then, ahimsa. What about ahimsa, non-harming? In terms of not killing things, what about on your yoga mat? How would ahimsa be violated or respected when you practice your asana?
By listening to your body.
You don't harm your body. Or if you're a teacher, you don't go over and harm somebody else, That's good, right? These type of interpretive things are nice to talk about in class. People do want to hear about these. These are the philosophy of Raja Yoga. So don't let me, rain on your parade about this whole stuff. So, don't disrespect, don't harm yourself when you practice asana. All right, satya. Satya is what? Like what? The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Truth telling. You guys like it? Or you like a little BS mixed in with it?
Then you get in a lot of trouble.
Do you always tell the truth? Are you honest in every instance? I don't think anybody is. Are you honest all the time?
I do really a lot. I'm trying always to be fair, direct, and honest. Yeah, mostly. Sometimes I make mistakes, obviously, but
yeah. There's a
I
kind
like to be honest.
Yeah, Satya. There's a guy I used to know who wrote a book called Radical Honesty, and he would tell the truth. He would have groups where you tell the truth, and he said you can tell the truth about what you think, what you feel, or what you've done. So people would be asked about their whole past sexual history, preferences, and it really broke the ego down. It really did. Like, it's embarrassing as shit, right? Like, and he was a psychologist, and he would get you talking, and if you didn't want to talk, that was not what you were there in the group to do. The group was to be radically honest about everything. So he would ask you questions that would be embarrassing. And why were they embarrassing? Because there's a belief behind it. This is another belief here, that if I tell the truth about the stuff that I judge myself negatively about, people won't like me. They won't love me.
You feel vulnerable.
You'll feel vulnerable, and you'll feel like pain, pleasure. They're going to not give me love or approval. I will not get love or approval from these people if I tell them the truth about what I've done, because it's sinful, and I feel guilty about it. And what he found in every instance, 100% of the time, is after a few days, these things would take a few days. You'd stay together in a retreat. It wasn't like an afternoon thing with people off the street. And the complete opposite happened. You tell the truth and you just tell everything. You just blurt out every single thing that you've ever done that you judge yourself about or feel guilty about. And the people not only don't judge you, they love you. Everybody loves you because everybody's in the same boat. You learn that every other person has stuff that they feel shameful about and they don't want to be judged, and everybody gets it out, and it's a love fest of appreciation and acceptance. It's 100% acceptance. So that's yoga. That's the Satya Yoga of telling the truth.
So my sister is she was a Scientologist
Okay.
for many years,
Yeah.
and they do this thing where you have to sit like across from somebody in
A
a chair.
dyadic communication.
Yeah, and you
with
have
a
to
real
go
person.
Yeah, you have to go through that process, and like you start off just by telling like small truths, like I lied about what I ate for dinner the other night, to like huge truths. And I got to witness one time that she was doing with somebody, and it is like the most. It's so bizarre. It's so like powerful. I don't think I could ever do it, but she did it, and like she overcame so many. She was struggling with addiction, so she went into Scientology,
Cool.
and she overcame so much just by like sitting there telling the truth about like small things.
And the person sitting across from you, they're trained to just be dispassionate.
Yeah.
They're not like, you did that?
Yeah.
You sick dog.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's unreal.
So can you see how that destroys the ego? The ego is just, remember, the ego is just the confusion of all these false belief systems. Let's just call that the ego. So this just demolishes the ego. Don't think of the ego as anything other than the confusion of incorrect beliefs that we are unconscious. And unconscious beliefs, how can you become conscious of them? You're unconscious of them. So that's why we're talking about it here. That's how you become conscious of them. And then they go away when you look at them and say, is it really true that if I tell the truth, people will not love me? Is that really true? And you learn, no, that's not true. And that's the freedom of it. That's freeing. That process right there frees us psychologically very much. Yeah, good. So that's a kind of yoga. So if you ever get into a lot of, I don't know if you, the other girl who does the teacher training at Bala Vinyasa, you know, Kirsten Mooney, have you heard of her? She tries to do a lot of interpersonal work on you like that. And maybe we can do a little, because I used to be very into that as well. But in non-dualism, it doesn't really fly. Working on yourself doesn't work. In fact, one non-dualism teacher wrote a book called Working on Yourself Doesn't Work. So, but it can, on a certain level, it did work. On a certain level of being a functional human being, these practices can be very effective. Yes, yes. But in terms of getting you all the way to enlightenment, there's a few more big jumps that you would have to take.
What's the name of that person?
What's the name of who?
Of the truth therapy.
Brad Blanton. Blanton. Brad, B-L-A-N-T-O-N. Blanton. Radical Honesty. And you can Google it or YouTube it. You can YouTube it. He's a Southern guy, like a big Southern boy, you know? Real friendly, big-hearted guy. But a little disarming because he's so honest. You're standing next to him. You ever stand next to people and you kind of feel like, well, a little energy here, you know? Like anything could happen. You don't know, you know? So he says in the group, when they start to talk about sex, that's the thing that everybody's embarrassed about. It doesn't talk about me. He goes, you got to stand up in front of the group, and he says, you got to say whether you've done it with animal, mineral, or vegetable. And then after a few days, like the advanced people, they start to have all their meetings and talk all their sexual history. Everybody completely naked.
Oh, come
Everyone
on.
takes off all their clothes. You have to stand up and talk about every part of your body that you judge yourself on. You're like, well, you know, my penis is da-da-da, you know. And then the very advanced, this is like, they videotape you
Oh, no.
doing that. And then the next day, they show it on the screen. Everybody goes in the TV room and watches it like this. The video of you like talking about your body naked. And anybody can ask any questions like, Luis, you know, when you were talking about your face there, I think were you nervous or something? Were you judging? You know, like you can ask any question about the body. And everybody's just, at the end, hysterically laughing, completely free, like euphoric, like samadhi, like crazy laughter. Isn't that awesome? People do that in this world. That's crazy. It makes us living doing that. Isn't that crazy? And that would be called Satya Yoga. That's radical honesty yoga. So that's how far the truth can take you. Can you feel how it would just destroy your ego?
Yeah.
You're free. Can you feel the freedom of that? We can do a couple little dyads of 2 on 2 where you're just not like that. We'll keep the clothes on.
Yeah, we
Keep
can.
the clothes. Keep the clothes on. Yoga is
I would probably
clothes
have
on.
to.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be fair.
But we can do some dyads where you can start with safer stuff like say, tell me what makes you feel passionate in life, or what makes you feel passionate in life. So you start to talk about the positive things that really motivate you, and you can then move into things like tell me what scares you, and then you can just basically generally talk about your general fears and stuff. That can be very powerful. We'll try that. We'll do some exercises like that. So that's Satya. We only get to the second one. Asteya, don't steal. This also technically, don't use things for other than their intended purpose. You're stealing the intended purpose. Do you understand that level? So you can't lock your bike to a parking meter. That parking meter wasn't made to lock your bike to it. That's the level of people put this on. Okay. Brahmacharya, we talked about what levels? We talked about all the different levels, from all the way from celibacy to having sex. Aparigraha, don't covet things, don't want more than you have. Can you feel the peace of that? If say you didn't want anything other than what you already have, and of course everybody deserves food, survival, clothing, shelter. So just take that for granted that you're going to have that. But other than that, you have everything you need. With the yoga mat, that's it, right? With the knowledge of asana and pranayama, that's it. That's the way the yogis felt. I'm good. I just got my practice. They would do their daily sadhana, and they were complete. You got to have everybody deserves food, shelter, and clothing.
Have you ever heard of the Maslow pyramid?
The what pyramid?
Maslow.
The Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, so it's that. So
It is.
You have to first have your basic needs
Right.
met, and then focus on them. If you don't have food or you don't have food,
You can't look for higher goals. No. So, aparigraha, I mean, what's a violation of that? What type of people in our society, or who do you know that kind of violates it and then is kind of, that doesn't have peace because of it? Who can you think? Who? Yeah, I mean, business people, people who are taught. Doesn't our culture teach? Get out there and compete. You can get as much as you want, and the more you get, the happier you're going to be. That's a false belief that's really strongly propagated in our mass media and culture. It's very much believed. I mean, come on. Don't you, in the back of your mind, feel like if you had $5 million in the bank, you would be a happier version of you? Don't you feel that way? A lot of people do. A lot of people do, is all I'm saying. Yeah. I certainly could entertain that thought, no question about it. But is it really true? I don't know. You don't really know. I mean, are all rich people happy?
No.
Okay. For sure, that's true. Are all poor people miserable?
No.
Are there some poor people who are absolutely euphoric and completely, utterly fulfilled? Are there some rich people who are also euphoric and utterly fulfilled? So what's the connection? Anything? There's no connection to happiness and fulfillment and enlightenment between money at all.
I read a beautiful quote with Oscar Wilde. It said something like, with the stars and moon, what else you need to be happy? Like something like that.
Yeah,
Or
just
the sun, I don't remember.
just something touching on the fact that you exist.
Mhm.
You've been given everything in terms of existence. You don't not exist, you are. There is. So, aparigraha, just greediness, ambition. Think of the word ambitious or ambition. Mostly we think of it in a good context, or competitive. Mostly we think of that in a good context. But this is, the yoga is saying, just drop it. drop it, and don't strive for anything at all. And do you feel the freedom instantly? It's kind of instant freedom, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what you want to feel. Beautiful. The niyamas, these are also, I love these. Saucha, purity. Clean up your act, your thoughts, be positive, don't judge. Pure body, pure mind, pure diet. So how many different ways can you interpret saucha in terms of purity? Lots of different interpretations. So how does it work with what you do on your asana? When you go to your asana, how does saucha affect us? What practices would we look for?
Alignment.
Be clean.
Pure, be clean with the alignment. I like that.
Don't judge yourself.
Don't judge yourself as well. That sounds good. Clean up the thoughts. What about just on a real more physical, straightforward level?
Oh, like be clean, like
Yeah, like wash your
shower.
feet, wash your hands, wash your face, take a shower. Don't have your mat be a mess. Don't you clean up the room? That's when we clean up the room beforehand. That's what it feels like. Doesn't it feel better? Yeah, so that's written in the yoga scriptures too. But can it be taken to the when we talked about those purification kriyas? Remember that word kriyas for purification? Should you purify yourself to the point where you're, doing crazy practices that are... Where do you draw the line with how much purity? Santosha, or santosha. Santosha, contentment, utter acceptance, unconditional acceptance. Okay, if you could have $5 million tax-free right now, the taxes are already paid on it, be deposited straight into your bank account, or you could have utter contentment in every moment, which would you take? Right, I heard of 3 people. Who would take the $5 million? The way I set up that question, you would have to choose the utter contentment in every moment, right? That's why you think the money is going to give you. That's what you think the money is going to give you. But there's going to be times when, say, somebody gives you the $5 million, you're happy, your chakras are all lit up because you just got $5 million, you'll feel it. But then somebody calls you and says, I heard you just got $5 million. Would you please pay off my mortgage?
Oh, I changed my number.
Okay, well then you'd invest the money, right? Say you invest the money. You go to the stock market. Say the stock goes down. The next day you only have 3.8 mil. How do you feel? The next day you still have 3.8 mil, but you just lost 1.2 million in investments in the stock market. How do you feel?
I'm fired.
You feel like shit, and you still have 3.8 million. See what I mean about money? It's crazy, isn't it? So you have to take the utter contentment in each moment. Now, what's more realistic? What, in terms of possible thing to happen for you? Is it more possible for you to have somebody give you $5 million, or for you to have contentment in every moment? You think it's a toss-up? I got news for you. Contentment in every moment is possible. It's possible. You can have that. It's not a dream. You can have it, all of you. It can be known. But you have to, what's the key to knowing contentment under all circumstances?
Be grateful.
Yes, but why can you feel grateful under all circumstances?
Because everything is good.
Oh, because you know that your awareness. It's only possible from the point of view of knowing yourself as that. Stop thinking. Is that content in every instance? It is, right? It's always content. It never makes a demand on life, right? You have to go back into a thought. The awareness is utterly content. That's what we already are. So when you know that, you're content in every circumstance, even if somebody's, beating you up, like, lazy son of a bitch. Now, you'll fight away, so you'll try to survive. You'll try to minimize the pain and get out of it. Your body will move like this and you'll get away from it. Okay? And you can be content with the fact that you felt discontent. That's what consciousness can be. Say you feel extremely discontent. Can you be aware that you're feeling extremely discontent? That's it. So that's contentment under all circumstances, even when you're discontent. See how unconditional? So contentment, that's a biggie. That's a huge, that is enlightenment right there. That word is synonymous with
Maybe
enlightenment.
we
Because
would've said-
it's only true contentment from the perspective of the non-dual reality that can't be threatened. The body, can you ever be content as a separate human being? Can you ever be content, long term, as a separate human being, as a body that lives in time and space?
Separate from what? From
That you think you're separate, that you think you're,
the
that you're a human
contrary
being.
of oneness?
You can't ever be, it's dualistic, because you're going to die, your body's going to die. Are you content with the fact that you're going downhill? From the perspective of a human being, there can be no permanent contentment. You have to transcend that and see yourself as an eternal spirit, and then you can be content under all circumstances. That's my point. Okay, move on from there. Love talking about that, though. Tapas. Tapas means going on your mat, turning the heat up, hour of asana practice, sweat, what you're willing to give, the effort that you're willing to give. Why are you willing to give that effort of tapas? Why? What motivates you to put your mat, to pay money, put your mat down,
So you
listen to the
feel
teacher?
good physically.
You want to feel good. That's what motivates everybody. That's why yoga's not going away. That's why you came to the mat. The intention, when everybody goes, everybody take time to set their intention. You know that, which is pretty. It's beautiful. But often I just say, okay, let's realize that our intention is all of us. We want to feel good. We want to feel good. That's why you came here, period. Simple as that. Did anybody come here wanting to you came here and you go, I don't want to feel good. Not one person would ever go to a yoga mat with that intention. You want to feel good. How do you want to feel good? In what ways?
Peace.
Peaceful, men in your mind, calm in your body, strong but supple, no pain, lighter, flexible. I want to feel loose. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel all that. You start talking about all that. Tapas. That's why we go to the mat. So, do you know this word austerity? Is everybody familiar with that word?
No.
Who's very familiar with it? Who would like to try define it?
Just keeping with the basic, materialistic talk. It's very
Yes, like that. Yeah.
Limiting to your needs. Kind of.
It's what to your needs?
Like limiting to what you need.
Yes. I like that. Limiting to what you need. Yes. What is it?
Yeah, be content.
Contentment.
with what you-
It's a willingness to deny short-term pleasure because you're able to put your gratification into the future because it'll be more. Delayed gratification. Austerity could be called delayed gratification. You're willing to put yourself under a moderate level of discomfort in terms of doing something that requires effort and energy that you know is going to give you an even better return. Because it's like you're sitting on a couch. If you sit on that couch for 1 hour, it's going to be easier than getting your up against gravity like this and making your muscles work and walking to the yoga studio and doing an hour's worth of this. But after that hour, how are you going to feel if you just sat on the couch compared to if you went to the yoga mat? Way better every time. No, do you agree?
Yeah.
Is there ever a time you go to a class, you actually make it through the class, or at least an hour, and you leave and go, I feel so much worse than when I started.
No.
If you hurt yourself, if you injure yourself, you'll go, I hurt my leg and I don't like that. But are you ever say, I should have stayed on the couch at the end of yoga class? When do you think it's a good time to stay on the couch? In the beginning when you're sitting there. So something has to get you up off that couch and get you to the yoga studio and do all that. That's tapas. That's a fire. That's the willingness to put yourself under the fire because it makes you feel even better. Are you grateful for that? There is gratitude for that, definitely. The fact that it's alive in us. Svadhyana. This is also one of my all-time favorites. Svadhyana means study of the scriptures or study of the self. Both things. So, reading this book, that's Svadhyana yoga. Svadhyana yoga is reading this book. But also those talks that we have of who is it that's aware? You know, what is it in you that is that pure awareness? That's the study of the self. That's Svadhyana too. But mostly in this context, Svadhyana is about study of the scriptures. What did saints and people who know and enlightened beings, what did they say in scriptures about what reality really is? You gotta study.
It's like making
It's like Jnana
sense of
Yoga.
mind.
What?
It's like a mind practice.
Mind practice. It's a mind practice. So he's covering all the bases here. You should also study the mind and understand what other people said about God and oneness and yoga, religion, stuff like that. Okay, and then we got Ishvara Pranihana, which is, they're all one word, you know, Saucha, Santosha, Tapas, Svadhyana, and then at the end they throw in this Ishvara Pranihana. You know, there's like a lot to learn there. But this is also one of my favorite things in all of life. This is another one that if you understand it, it is enlightenment. That this one is like contentment. Ishvara Pranihana. And it means faith. How much do you trust that what you are is real, permanent, it can't be threatened, it can't die? How much do you trust that? How much do you trust God? Now, let me just give you an example. Say you trusted God 100%. 100% faith. How would you feel in life?
No fear.
You feel content, no fear.
Faith.
Secure. No fear, content, secure. Isn't that what you want to feel? Isn't that what you want to feel? So who's stopping you? Who's stopping you from trusting God 100%?
You.
The old beliefs, the maze of false beliefs that confuses us. That's it. I mean, let me just pose a little logic to you. What do you really have to lose? I set it up. Remember when I gave you $5 million and then the next day you had $3.8 million and you lost 1.2 and you were disappointed? That's called taking something for granted. You were getting the $5 million, so now you take it for granted that that's the level that you need to be happy, right? When you had less, you're not happy. So the same is true of the human condition. You're taking for granted life. How did you decide to be born?
You didn't decide to.
You didn't decide to be born. It wasn't under your choosing, right? That you know of.
Right.
Well,
For sure. And so you can't know how you got here. All you can know is you're here, right? There is existence. Even if you believe that you're here as a separate body, at least there is something going on. Is it the same as when you're sleeping in the middle of the night and there's no dreaming and there's nobody there? Is that what this is? No. You exist. How did you even get into existence? We're taking that for granted. So that's why people who did you guys watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
Well, have you ever heard of somebody who had a terminal disease and they just go, okay, fuck it. They're free. You know, if somebody says, you only have a few weeks to live, to us we'd be like, oh, you know, because we're taking for granted that we're going to live really far into the future. So that would be devastating news. But if you totally trusted Ishvara Pranihana, totally trusted God, and you knew the only way you can is you know that what you are is the awareness that doesn't die. You have to know that. That's the key to the whole thing. That's what I keep saying. Then you're content. You're fine. You're not hurting whatsoever. You trust. Oh, on to the next adventure of consciousness. Whee! So you're free. So sometimes that happens. Somebody gets a bad diagnosis. Initially, like I think you guys can all say, no, I'd be devastated. But hasn't it happened where somebody's gotten that and they've just said, fine, whatever. And they've freed themselves in the last few, amount of time of their life? Is that good or bad?
Good.
That might be the purpose of your whole incarnation as a separate individual. That might have fulfilled everything right there. So in that context, is that disease bad?
No.
It's helping your soul to free itself in that context. See that? So how can you know that disease is bad? So there's another one of those belief systems that you could look at. Getting a disease, here's your belief that you all probably have unconsciously. Getting a terminal disease is bad for you. Do you believe that that's true?
Yeah.
Most of us would say we believe that that's true. Is it true? Can you know that it's true? You can't now know that it's true. That's how you uncover unconscious belief system and free yourself from it. So that's how you get rid of that maze right there, it's confusion. So, dedication to the Lord. I mean, it's simple too. Have you ever met, I think I talked about this in the very beginning, in the last weekend. Did you ever meet a Christian who just goes, Jesus makes every decision for me? I never decided anything since I gave my life over to Jesus. And sometimes they can be they're like enlightened beings. Now they have this, they still have this intermediary between what they actually are and life and goodness. But we talked about that in terms of the Bhakti Yoga. Their guru is Jesus. So there's still something in between. But they have learned to 100% surrender or trust something that they consider higher to be than themselves. So that's pretty cool, isn't it? Who's stopping you from doing that? From being 100% contentment or 100% trusting? What's stopping you?
Your ego.
Your ego and your fearfulness, right? You still have some fearful ideas that you're a body that could get annihilated somehow or destroyed or something like that. Well, all I can say is, it might. No, there's no guarantee. Anything can happen in the physical world and duality, and doesn't it? Don't people get killed any million of different ways?
Yeah.
So, you know.
Survival.
Yeah, so whatever, just do whatever, and you're surviving or not. So there's no guarantees. So don't take life for granted. What you already are is complete. It contains everything that you need to fulfill whatever, questions your soul had or whatever confusion is still lingering around you. The answers are right here, right now, in yoga, in the study of yoga. Isn't that cool? Pretty awesome. Do most people who come to a yoga class in a yoga studio who are going to come to your classes, do they understand that?
No.
No, it's hard to get through to people like that in an hour. So you have to know it and be a living example of that in terms of just being loving, not behaving in a perfect way, but just accepting of people. If it's true that there's oneness, there is no separate people. We kind of proved that when we did that exercise about everything we know about another person, we know through ourselves. So there is really no separation. So that'll lead you to, just be your message, so to speak. All right, so then you finally get to do the asanas. Then you do the pranayama. We did some of the pranayama. We're going to do some more today. Then you do the pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, concentration, dhyana, samadhi. I wanted to say one other post. Do you remember last Sunday when we turned up the air conditioning and put the blanket over us and put the bolster under our knees, and some people even put a little towel over their eyes? That's part of restorative yoga too. That's restorative shavasana. Did that feel great? Did you rest deeply, like you went deep? The coolness on the outside and the blanket over you, that's using of props. Did you like that effect? That has an effect. If you have a cool day of a yoga class, at the end, put the blanket over the people, put the bolster under the knees, cover the eyes, and you go deeper in the relaxation. Pretty cool. So that's pratyahara, inner withdrawal of the senses. That helps understand that one. That's why I look at that now. And let's just double back here for a second. So say you were going to do a restorative yoga class. Do you already know a sequence that you could do of restorative yoga? I think you kind of do. Say you did this one. Say you did this one for 5 minutes, lay over the bolster. Then you did the legs up the wall with the feet in the cobbler for 4 minutes. Then you did the legs straddled out for 4 minutes. Then you did the legs straight up and down.
You can lay on your back.
Then lay on the back with the bolster, and so you already know four different things to do. See how that would work? That could easily, right there, be a 35, 40-minute class. Now, add in, remember the exercise that we did yesterday? Inhale on a 4, hold for a 4, exhale on a 4. Did you guys remember doing that exercise? We'll do some more today. So you now could do a simple pranayama. So you can do the pranayama and the restorative. You are already Do you think you could pull that off? Do you see how simple that is? I'll bet you guys could pull that off tomorrow. If I said you had to teach that class tomorrow, I'll bet you could do it. Easy, right? Get the people in those shapes and then put on some spiritual music.
It's easy to send out a message in a class like that. We do not talking about that.
Very easy to send it. And you're not teaching a class with 70 different poses and alignment. There is no alignment. And the poses, you're all laying on your back. You're basically just being nice to people, like bringing them a nice blanket, like tucking it in nicely, And also, don't you know how to do this? Is assist too? Couldn't you give everybody a little da-da-da-da-da too? You know how to do that? See what you already know how to do? You guys really already know how to be the yoga teachers. You really do. Willa, I'm going to be subbing for you on Monday night, right? All right, so the final conclusion of Raja Yoga and this type of thing. The question that's on the final exam is, who wrote the 8-limb path? Mr. Patanjali, to you? Mr. Patanjali, sir? Patanjali wrote it, and he wrote it in the Yoga Sutras. That's where it came from. He what?
Patanjali.
Patanjali, with A's, all A's. Patanjali, except for the N.
Where did he?
In India, probably. In India, I would think, yeah. He wrote it, and it says, name the 8 limbs in Sanskrit and in English, and name the yamas and the niyamas in Sanskrit and in English. So you just have to go, ahimsa, non-harming. Satya, truthfulness. Asteya, non-stealing. Brahmacharya, sexual restraint. You see what I mean?
Okay.
It just goes, that's a question on the final exam right there.
So the 8 limbs and the yamas and niyamas?
Yeah, the 8 limbs including the yamas and the niyamas.
He wrote all the Yoga Sutras? Or
He wrote what?
All the Yoga Sutras?
Yes, he wrote all the Yoga Sutras. He wrote all of them, yes.
How
No,
many?
I think other people are credited with other kinds of yoga. He wrote the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. No, there are other Yoga Sutras by other writers, yes. These are the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Okay, you're right about that. Good question. All right?
How many are there?
Well, in his, there's 178, I believe. We'll look at it. Have you guys ever looked at the Yoga Sutras? Do you want to look at them?
Yeah.
No, they're boring stuff, but we will look at them. So, what are the benefits of this path? To whom, what would be your benefits along the way if you were undertaking this path as a yoga person? What are the pluses of it?
Self-discipline.
You'd learn a lot of self-discipline, definitely. Your daily discipline, your sadhana, your asana, your meditation. Good benefit. What else?
What's in the last one? The ecstasy, like.
Yeah, it's you're being promised some kind of a payoff at the end in terms of enlightenment or ecstasy. That's nice. What else? What are the benefits of this? What do you get along the way?
You're trying to serve humanity, you have to be healthy yourself.
Yeah, you're healthy. You're healthy with this practice.
Contact.
Unless you take it too far. All right, but what are other benefits of this practice?
Happiness.
Yeah, it gives you something to do. I mean, it gives you a guideline. You could be happy about that. Yeah. Okay, what are the pitfalls of it? So the benefits, there are benefits to this in terms of the human condition and the human being. What would be the drawbacks of this path in terms of either going for enlightenment or just trying to be a healthy human being? What is it?
I could see that you could get really obsessed with it and it would try to take over.
Yeah, sometimes at the very end, the Raja yogis, they have to give up their practice. Their guru, or at the end, if they found a guru, the guru would say, okay, stop meditating. Don't meditate anymore. Stop doing any practice. And they're like, what are you talking about? I practice every day for 25 years. That's what I am. So their identity just is tied up in the practice. And what are you really trying to realize? You're trying to realize what you are. So in order for you to realize what you are, do you have to meditate for 25 years? I don't think so. It's a false belief. So you might still be operating underneath some false beliefs that are confusing the fact that what you're looking for is right here, right now, despite whatever state you're in from meditation or pranayama or yoga practices. It's reality is here right now. It would have to be. Otherwise, there's no reality. So the other obstacle I would say is then if you're going for enlightenment, does doing this path guarantee that?
No.
I mean, no path really can. No path does. But this one is particularly severe because where do you draw the line? Who decides finally how much practice is enough to get you to enlightenment? So you're being told to do breathing exercises, pranayama. So maybe you start to be able to breathe that 1 breath per minute, 20 seconds. Inhale, 20 seconds, hold 20 seconds. Maybe you get there, but you're still not enlightened. So there's another level. Oh, there's people who can hold their breath for an entire hour. They could stop their heart rate. So I've got to strive for that. Where do you draw the line? When is enough enough? This path, and with those ethical disciplines, who makes the rules of what really is a violation of ahimsa or satya or asteya? Who's the council? Because certainly, are all of these things, the yamas and the niyamas, being observed and respected and abided by right now in the human condition? Yes or no? Has there ever been a time in any recorded human history where every single one of these things has been respected or abided by, like in totality? No. So the evidence is that there's never, ever, ever been a time that this has been true. What is true? Everything is already happening just exactly the way it is. Some people are harming people, some people are not harming other people. Some people are telling the truth, other people are lying their asses off. Some people are, having sex, some people are not having sex. Some people are stealing, some people are not stealing. Some people are ambitious, other people are content. Then you go to the Sauchas. Is purity always true? No. People are being dirty and they're being clean. So are people content? No. There's contentment and there's discontentment. Is tapas? Is everybody going to their mat? No. Some people are just laying in bed and not doing this. Is everybody studying the scriptures? No. Some people don't care whatsoever about the scriptures. They just don't care. Most people.
Yeah, I mean,
All right? Ishvara Pranihana. Is Ishvara Pranihana being observed? No. There's people who have faith in God. There's people who are atheists who say, no. They're nihilistic and they just say, fatalistic. Your body is everything there is. When it dies, you are gone. There's a lot of that, right? There's no faith in that. I mean, that is a certain kind of faith, I guess you'd say, but it's not eternal faith. Limited. It's limited. So what's the reality of life? Are the 8 limbs possible? You still want to say they're possible, Romy? You're really an optimist. You're an eternal optimist over there. You want the 5 million. You want to believe in all the dreams are true.
They've
We
existed
all become aware.
They've existed forever, and if it were that easy, I mean, all these 8 limbs and the sutras that were written 1,800 years ago.
Yeah, and we still have never gotten it.
Nobody has ever gotten it.
Not for 1 second. It's
So
been that way.
clearly doesn't. Because what I feel that is missing here, they never talk about love. They never really talk about heart.
Ishvara Pranihana would be love. Ishvara
But
Pranihana.
that
Total thing. If you trust 100% in God, that's the definition of love.
So that would
That's
be
implied in it. That's the same word. They become synonymous words at that point.
completion, other faith.
If you had 100% complete and utter faith in God, that defines love. That is what love is.
But wouldn't that be the most important thing?
Yeah, sure. But that's why this. Yeah.
Santosha.
Santosha, contentment. That's also love.
Yeah, it says that.
Unconditional.
Unconditional love. But getting So if you getting back to my point, which was what was my point? It was what? Is it even possible? So it's a wonderful, like Romina over there is a dreamer. She's an optimist. She has faith in the human condition. But I'm telling you, all of that, didn't you see very clearly that that's in duality? All of that exists in duality. So as much as you're going to have somebody behaving well, you're going to have somebody behaving poorly in duality, right? So in my opinion, this system is kind of a dualistic system that's hoping for something that's unrealistic or impossible almost. And that is that in duality, as separate human beings, everybody will start to behave in a way that is compliant with only good. I don't think that that's possible in the human condition. Because you might say you're not greedy, but there's a part of the human condition that's greedy, right? I mean, that's kind of how you survive, basically. It's built into us, so. You love the human being. You have so much faith in us. So anyway, try if you want. So what happens is what's happening here is you're still hanging on to kind of a romanticized idea that there's in the future there's going to be everybody's going to be conscious and start to join hands and sway back and forth and sing Kumbaya in the Middle East, and Israelis and Arabs are going to put down their arms and hug each other and do some sun salutations on the and spot each other in Warrior 2, and and all the babies are playing together and oneness. And that ain't ever gonna happen. Don't hold your breath on that one, okay? Peace is possible. It's an inside job in our own head now, based on getting over these false beliefs. It has nothing to do with geographical borders and political situations. That's not possible in dualism. It's just not going to happen. There's no evidence that it ever is. Has there ever been any recorded time, since time started to be recorded, where there wasn't some conflict going on?
But isn't that going from the past and trying to bring that into the present and say, well, because of that, that is the reality now of our present, because based on history? When, I mean, all it takes is to change the paradigm of the planet to have that kind of peace. Like, for example, if you continually held classes every single day with enough people to fill the room, new people every single day, basically teaching what you did our first day, you don't think that would change? So I don't think that it's impossible. I think it's close to it, but it still has possibility.
But you're Burdell, you have would that be better then if it did change that way and those people started to see the light, so to speak? Would that be a better world?
I think so.
No, it wouldn't. For who? For who? In non-dualism, it's seen that there is no. This is perfection right now, exactly the way that it is. That's what's seen. Mm-hmm. So there might be a little false belief that's still lingering around, but things could be better. Look at that. That's, I think, what your question is based around. Things can't be better in reality. From the point of view of stop thinking again, just go right, so it's not conceptual, you know it. Blank out. Before a thought comes in, when you're just hovering there in that awareness, does that awareness have any agenda that things could be better or worse before a thought comes in? It doesn't, does it? It really doesn't have a preference. So it's not saying things would be better if. You have to have a thought in order for that to be conjured up. So I know that this is startling because we're breaking down beliefs that we might have had for years and years and lifetimes. This beliefs that we've had keeps us getting born and thinking we're separate individuals over and over again. And there is no time. We're not making any progress. We're spinning like a mouse running on a wheel chasing the cheese, but it's never getting any closer. So nothing has ever happened. Nothing ever will happen. There's only ever now and what is. So that kind of trust, that's what we're being asked to go for if you're going for this freedom. Because the thought that things could be better if people outside me, which we proved is impossible, there are no people outside me, started to behave in a more spiritual or high vibrational way, that would improve the earth or the planet or society.
A poor way to put it, but it would be nice. and I don't think it's impossible. I think it's far-fetched, but actually possible, yeah, I think.
But I think it would be better though, because if you take like for the Middle East, for example, and maybe some conscious living, I don't know, what would fix the situation over there. But it would
You know what,
be better
radical
because-
honesty, they need to go and take all their clothes off.
Because it would be, I think it would be better to not have children being killed, and to not have families being torn apart. It would be better.
I think
It would be better.
I get what Paul's saying, like, it's okay, like,
Yeah.
utter acceptance of what this is.
Yeah.
So I think better was a poor way for me to
Okay.
put it, I just think it'd be nice.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. All right, fine, that's cool. No, that's why I say you guys come in and bring your own stuff. I'm just bring your own ideas and beliefs and stuff, and then they'll change, and the way you look at stuff changes, and that's what we're doing here. We're looking at things. Any belief that you want to change, maybe you're conscious of it now, and you can say, oh, I want to change that. If you don't, and you like what you believe in, that's good. Maybe that's faith, Ishvara Pranidhana, to you, right? Maybe that feels like faith, that inherent preference for goodness. That's a pull from God, you know, that's valid. Just watch it when you go out there, because if somebody behaves in a way that doesn't conform to the way that the model that you think we should be moving towards, you will feel angry towards that person, right?
That's expectance.
Yeah, yeah. So you watch that, you know, with dualism, you pick up both ends of the stick, the good and the bad, you know. Because if somebody does what you want, you're happy, you're like, oh, there's oneness over there. But somebody behaves in an opposite way, you go, what an asshole. They're polluting. You know, people shouldn't be that, you know. You're at odds with reality now, and that causes a mental disturbance, you know. All right, so that's my point. This is a great ideals, but in practical application, it doesn't happen. You can aspire to it. I think it is great to aspire to, but don't get too caught up in it, because it's not required for you to know yourself, to behave in your act. So, good. Really good. Now, the bandhas. Maybe we'll teach that in a second. Now we'll go into more asanas, okay? So we'll do our posture now again for a while. All right. So we looked at, yesterday I felt like we covered a lot of the fundamentals of asana practice. Did you learn yesterday from some stuff? Today I won't practice. Today I'm going to watch some of you guys do some poses. We're all going to watch each other do the poses and see if we can see some tendencies that, you know, we can learn what to say in the poses, okay? So, did she explain much about use of the props yesterday? A little? Poquito? Repeat after me. Poquito. You're not feeling all that, but you go ahead. So, the blocks, this is about my favorite prop. I mean, she goes pretty far with the props, right? I mean, and I think that chair. Did you do things with the chair?
Yeah.
Did it help? I mean, was the chair did you like the chair?
Rick Carolina.
Really? Okay, perfect. I don't know how to use it.
I didn't like it.
But just because you don't like one prop in Iyengar, does it mean you throw out all the props? No. Do you like the bolsters?
Yeah.
I see you're all sitting on them now, so you do like the bolsters. Do you like the strap sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah, it can help. Do you like the blocks
Yes.
or no? You guys do, or do you? Because when I go to somebody and I hand a tight person, I put these down right in front of them, and they're standing here. You know, a good portion of the time they're no. Why do people do that? What's going on?
They feel like it's for them.
They feel it's like too easy does it, or it's beginning. You're singling me out as being bad. I'm handicapped. I need crutches. There's so many negative associations with the block. I do too. I love it. So
I had it at first, and then I made
So why? So here's the blocks. Here's your tight guy who comes into yoga class. You're gonna be. I feel better, Janelle. All right. Say bye to Janelle.
Bye.
All right. You're not judging yourself for leaving, are you?
No.
We're not judging you.
No.
I hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the most important thing. So the third person can't, why the blocks? So who can tell me why in a forward bend I would put 2 blocks in front of people? Support from what?
The back.
The back. What can't they do?
Bend over.
No, they bend over incorrectly. They can't do neutral spine when they're bent over. They can't do neutral spine when they're bent over. So they're like this. You know, they're all rounded. I need them to go a little bit more like this. So if you're not touching anything, it's hard. So you put this down and you go like this. Oh, boom. All of a sudden I can do the cat-cow. I can do the pelvic tilt. Remember that pelvic roll I told you? I can move my bum. I can move all the different parts of my spine. I have to loose. I have total control over my spine in terms of putting it in neutral. So that's why we use them. So the blocks have 3 heights. This is the lowest, this is the medium, and this is the highest. How do you know which level to put your hands on?
Depending on your back.
Wherever you can go into.
Yeah, kind of like that. But you don't want to strain for the blocks. Like say I put it on this height, and I'm like this. Why wouldn't I just flip it? You generally want your hand to be flat on a block. You're not, no more tent hands like this on the block, really, unless you need to from the highest. Otherwise, just flip it. Then, yeah, you got it. It's basically would be the lowest setting that you need to in order to control your back to put it in a neutral position. Yeah, that's a good answer. So the blocks are used tremendously in forward bending poses to use that. How are the blocks used to strengthen our body?
Put it into your leg.
Yeah, like this, right? You guys like this?
Yeah.
I mean, it does teach you a different quality of all this squat pose and all that. Even if you start to do abs with this, like down here. Isn't it? This is good. This is really good. You guys, who has never done this? You haven't? Yeah, in a class, and then make you guys all do it. It's good. You're squeezing, but you're getting your abs. This is great. And you're in line. So what about using this to do a back bend? How could I use this block to help me in a back bend arch?
Supported bridge.
Supported bridge, exactly. Supported bridge. You guys like this one?
Yeah.
Ah, so nice. This is what category, what style of yoga is this? Restorative yoga. So you could put this in your sequence, okay? Your little restorative sequence. This would be in the category of back bends.
Also hero's pose.
Also, hero's pose can be used for, this is very, very, very important. This. Do you like this, sitting on this like this? Who needs it? Can everybody here separate your feet and sit your butt right down on? Everybody in this class? I don't know. Who?
I need a block.
I need a block. I can sit with my feet together without the block, right? But how about sitting with your feet apart, sitting on the ground? Who can do it easily? Like you could sit there for 15, 20 minutes, you're fine. Your knees start to ache. Okay, so if your knees start to ache, if you were going to sit for 15 or 20 minutes, you very well might come up. And this is, you could stay here all day, right? This is like nothing, right? Okay. Yeah, put that in there too. Hero pose is part of restorative yoga. This is a wonderful meditative pose.
When you're using the block for back bends like you just did,
Yeah.
how do you know, like I never know when I'm using it right in those instances, like if I'm stretching or if I'm hurting my back?
Okay, so let's use you guys as body. Come over and lay on the mat. Tiffany. All right, so there's different levels of blocks. You want the ones that are a little thicker, a little firmer than that. Let me see if I can find one that's a little firmer. You know, all blocks are not created at the same. Okay, this is what it is. You know, you can't be frustrated with what it is, right? But if you ever buy these, you don't want the ones that are too squishy because they can't hold you right now. She lays on her back. She bends her knees, puts her feet on the floor. She lifts her bum. Now wedge this underneath on your sacrum. It should feel comfortable and symmetrical. This is a symmetrical pose, right?
Yeah.
It should be flat on the floor. It looks like it's tipped a little bit, Tiffany. Yes, it's flat. And also, do you want it to be this way, sideways? Because the shape of your sacrum is more conducive to this. Why don't you turn the block like that?
Like how?
Like this. You turned it like this. I want you to go in it like that. It should feel comfortable. Don't put it in a place that it doesn't feel supported and comfortable. In the sacrum is what you're trying to support, basically.
Yeah, it feels good right there.
You feel good right there. Like it feels like you could stay there with no effort for half a minute or something.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a restorative pose. That's how you know where it should be. Now, with regard to her feet, so she's in a pose, right? There's not much weight bearing on the feet, but what would you tell her to do with her feet?
Straighten her.
Parallel and straight.
Yeah, straighten. But you're not allowed to do toes out like this. And what might you do with the second block then?
Between your legs.
Squeeze that. Does that feel even, in a way, slightly more supported and better? So that's the principle that she's engaging and lifting certain muscles up, and that's taking away from the dumping of the gravity by using the muscles to support themselves up. You feel lighter, more supported, stronger. Okay. All right, lower down. Now, there's another pose that you can do that I think is incredible with the block, and I prefer this block with it instead of this. See how there's, so she lays on her back, we'll get ready, and we put this underneath the middle of the back. Now go back and lay down. So it props your chest up like this. The feet can be straight out, or you can put your feet together in a cobbler pose, knees apart like that, or she can do that. Now, take some deep breaths, Tiffany, and try and breathe into your sternum and diaphragm. Do you see how this stretches open the front of the chest? These are the intercostal muscles in between the rib cage, are the intercostal muscles. When they stretch out by taking deep inhales, there's more capacity, more room for the lungs to bring in oxygen. Also, the sternum and the diaphragm are breathing muscles that are stretched as a result of the shape of it, right?
What's that pose like fish?
This is supported fish right there. And this is what, not to get too far into the chakras, but what chakra would this open up?
Heart.
Heart chakra. So, you know, I used to put people in this. Are you comfortable in it for a little while longer? Not hurting yourself? So, if we were going to turn this one into more of a restorative pose, look at how her knees are kind of dangling. See how she's a little uncomfortable with her legs a little bit, like she's kind of a little bit. We would just come like this. She'd come up a little here, drop that down, and then come up here, and she drops this down. Is that better?
Yeah.
That's so much nicer. Now, what else could I do to make her more comfortable?
Blanket.
Blanket underneath the head. See how maybe a roll, I could roll something up and put it underneath her neck. Like even this little, see this little guy right here? This little towel. I might take something like this. Little towel roll. That's too small, but maybe something's not better or worse. It's kind of nice, you know? She's got a little more padding now underneath the back of her head. You could take stuff and put it, you know, underneath the arms if you wanted. But otherwise, there's another restorative pose in your repertoire. So we're getting close. I think we're getting close to being able to do a restorative class in here amongst ourselves. And you guys could learn to teach restorative yoga. This just has to be 45 minutes. You don't have to. All right, good. Now, to come out of it, she rolls over on the side. She doesn't come up in the middle. She removes the block, and then she goes back on her back when it comes up or whatever. Okay? All right, cool. So that's how to use the blocks to improve, first of all, for restorative yoga, but second of all, to make it more possible for people to do neutral spine or to go into back bends or to sit in Virasana. Very important.
I have a teacher use a block to do handstands.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like hold it like this, or what? Or put it like this
For the leg.
to the leg in the handstand.
I couldn't do it. So I'm
They'd be in the handstand and they'd put the block in between the legs.
No, basically, the block would help
To jump up.
to jump up. So from here, you would have to land back on the block.
Okay. See it's limitless creativity with the block. Okay, so the blocks, the props are our allies. As a yoga teacher, you got to sell them into the students a lot of times. You have to sell them on it. But once people get advanced, they are open to it. The yoga teacher's like, oh yeah, give me a block. The beginner's like, no block for me. It's fun. And so when you propose the blocks to somebody, you know me, I'm very permissive. I'll say, hey, put your hands on this. And if they push them away, I'll let it be in my class. And if they hurt their back, it's up to them, you know? It's not, I don't like stay on, hey, use the blocks, come on, I gave those to you, you know. I offer it, I don't push it up. Some teachers do. Some teachers like, everybody grab 2 blocks, I want to show you guys something. They're very specific. Elaine's more like that, isn't she? Everybody get 2 blocks, I want to show you something. Okay, so let's see what other poses. So we talked about poses yesterday. We talked about, let's do Megan. Go into Warrior 1. Hold on a second. You can be the yoga model for a second here. Okay, so yeah, check your hair first. All right, so she's going to go into Warrior 1 either way.
So do I have to, like, when you want me to do that, do you need to go down and do it?
No, just go into Warrior 1 and put step 1 before the, yeah, exactly. Raise your arm up. Okay. Now, we're not being critical of Megan here, but what do we notice? What might we tell her about where does the ankle, the heel, the feet go? You stay in it.
There should be a line.
Is it?
No, I feel like her foot needs to come out a little bit.
Like this foot could scoot a tiny bit that way? I would say she's pretty good. This is a little bit on the inside, but we talked about heel to heel awareness of Warrior 1. Also, look at this foot. Is this foot straight? Which direction is it turned too much to?
Right.
It's a little bit too much at like 1 o'clock, and that's what I said. If girls are overly flexible, she must be overly flexible. Now, what about this area? What might we look at? She's in a pretty deep back arch. What might we tell her to go to neutral? Tuck the tailbone, draw the, yes, exactly. That was perfect. That was perfect. Did you feel that?
Yeah.
You kind of almost came out of the pose, but did you feel the flatness come into here?
Yeah,
It was,
it feels better.
exactly. That's the neutral spine for her. So look at her hands. I mean, she could work a little harder with the arms probably, but she doesn't have to look up, right? That was good that she didn't immediately start looking up. All right, switch to the other side. Switch to the other leg anyway. Okay, so what else? And we're not being critical of the way she's doing the pose. We're all going to do some poses. I've never done a pose correctly. I don't think there is perfect alignment. Do you? I mean, come on. So what about the direction of her back foot?
It has to be 45 degrees.
I definitely think you should turn this towards, perfect. I love that. I love that much.
I'm seeing some people like this, I'm seeing some people like this.
It's 2 different poses, remember. When your foot's being allowed to be on the floor, that's called Warrior 1 or Warrior 2 when we're ready to open. But Warrior 1. Is it possible really to square your hip when your foot is on the floor though? No. So that's why we swivel to hop to lunge, high lunge I would call this.
So that's right.
So that's right. That is totally right for Warrior 1. Now raise your arms up and try. Okay, now what are her shoulders perfectly symmetrical to the front?
No.
So what cue would you give her to try and get her shoulders a little more square?
Square. The hips. Square.
That was good. What did you just do? I would say she just turned more to the front or draw her left arm back. That straightened it. That made it straight. Okay, stuff like that.
I would step her front feet a little bit farther.
If you keep your back foot more or less where it is and inch this foot forward a little bit more, bend that knee. What do you feel now? You feel it more. So by going wider, thank you. You can sit down. Thank you. Give her a little. By going a little wider in lunges and standing poses, what happens? You feel more. You stretch more. Yeah. If I'm going to do the pyramid pose and I go like this, oh, pyramid pose? Yeah. What? You know, it's still a lot different than if I do the pyramid pose like that, you know? So the wider you go to a certain degree, you're going to feel more expansion and more, you're biting off more and you feel more generally better. So for you, you got pretty long legs. Don't go too short in those poses. Challenge yourself and take that big step into those lunges, you know?
I used to have a teacher that on Warrior 1, she insisted me on squaring the hips.
Okay, and you're going to go to every yoga studio in the world. They're going to say, square your hips in Warrior 1, square your hips in Warrior 1, square your hips in Warrior 1. In my opinion, it's impossible because that back foot is turned. You're not going to be able, unless you're a very flexible person, maybe 1 in 25, 1 in 50.
Okay.
And so maybe that's an ideal to work towards. In my opinion, to have the most success of squaring the hips and feeling it, I would rather have the people just change their foot stance and feel pelvic square alignment. This is the pelvic bones, equal distance from the front that equal this is not like this.
So when you twist, it's no longer warrior one.
Right, then we call that high lunge. It's no longer warrior one. Correct, yes, correct. So in my opinion, warrior one is, it's a thing of the past. I think it's going out of style a little bit. I think high lunge is a little better. But it does feel good to come up into warrior one from the sun salutations, right? And remember that sun salutation be the way that Tabi, Joyce, and Ashtanga taught. So they're coming up here. I just believe if you're going to start to go into a bunch of things here, you might as well square the hip. And certainly if you're going to be twisting, you've got to square the hip.
So the difference between a higher lunge and a lunge would be like the distance between, because, or what's the difference?
Between what lunges?
Between a high lunge.
High lunge.
And a lunge, what's the difference?
None really. A lunge is not, but I would basically, we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we talk about the sequencing, but I would say there's low lunge, there's knee down lunge, there's low lunge, there's middle lunge, I would say. Let's see, there would be low lunge, knee down lunge, right lunge. I mean, high lunge or middle lunge, which would you call it? High lunge or middle lunge? High lunge, middle lunge, high lunge versus low lunge. Maybe no middle lunge.
Do you keep your knee a little tiny micro bend when you're doing the high lunge? Like your back side?
Go into it, Claudia. Let's see you do a high lunge. Let's see what she can do with her back knee, okay? Okay, her back knee, is it straight or is it bent? Okay. How, yeah.
Trying to straighten it?
Try to straighten it. What happened with her hips when she tried to straighten it? They went backwards, so bend your front knee more forward. Yeah, now straighten it. That's what you're trying to do in the whole thing. The essence of lunges is keep your back leg as straight as you can, unless you're prone to hyperextension. And then bend your front leg after you hold it. So hold this as straight as you possibly can first. Don't let go of that. Bend this. Do you feel a lot when you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, switch to the other side.
Sharon says to stack up your heel over your toes, so that way you hold away not like your back.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. A little bit. She's a little bit like she's got this foot here and this foot here. Is that hips width apart, or is this leg a little bit out like
A little
this?
bit out.
It's a little bit out. You would probably have to push this foot a little bit. Now, why did that's more hips width apart? Why did she put the foot a little wider out? Why? It's easier to balance. The wider you go, it's easier to balance. But is this, see my hips? See, is this, my hips are not that wide. Okay, so she put that. So the essence, in my opinion, of the alignment of all lunges, the thing to say to make people feel good in warrior one, high lunge, warrior two is sharpen your back leg. No bend in the back knee now. Hold that very strongly. Bend the front leg now. That's the essence of, that's where the weight bearing is. So whatever you're doing up here doesn't matter, you know. Blah, blah. Thank you. That's good.
This isn't, you don't want to like bend back, you want to move like that.
You want neutral spine in that, sure. You want neutral spine in that too.
I just want to add the knee. Put your knee over your toe.
That's super overextension. Overextension. So when somebody goes into a lunge, I usually talk about this a little later, but we're getting into it tonight. That's okay. When somebody goes into a lunge and they're tight and they don't step completely forward, like say they're in downward dog and they're supposed to step their foot forward and drop them, and they get to about here and they put this down. Then the teacher says, come up into a lunge, and they kind of start to come into this thing. Have you seen this with the front knee a lot?
Yeah.
The heel comes up and the knee is way out over the. That's not hyperextension. Hyperextension is the other way, but that's overextension in a way that's really putting a lot of pressure on the knee. So generally, yoga teachers are saying knee directly over the ankle, just a 90 degree. Just think about it, the nicest carpentry and the foundational. Yoga's always like this, boom, boom. It's vertical, horizontal stability. So having said that, who's flexible and goes, no, I go like this in every lunge. See but this heel is still on the ground and they're just getting more of a stretch. Is there anybody that ever likes that? There are. You'll see girls who like that. No guys do that, but girls. No girl here likes to do that?
I do.
I do it by accident. Yeah.
You do it by accident, but Come over here, Shelly, let's take a look.
I don't know.
Listen, I think that everybody should get little yoga socks like Shelly's. You know? It's cute. All right, knee down lunge. Put your knee down on the floor. Okay, now raise your arms up. Okay. Now, yeah, that's good. Okay, now just hold it here. This knee, where is it in relationship to her ankle? It's right above. She's got a beautiful stretch. This is as 90 degrees I ever see anybody get. Beautiful. Her hips are below the knee. That's good too. Right? You're getting some stretches in here. You're getting a little stretch in there and stuff like that. Okay, now put your hands on your hips for just a second. Now draw this foot a little bit backwards. Now, keep this down, but let this knee... Is that better or worse? That's worse. So that's incorrect position. That's overstretching for her. But you will see some people do it. And there's certain advanced people who that is just... Did you ever see that poster of 1,001 yoga poses?
No.
You've never seen that?
No.
By Dharma Mitra? Very advanced yoga people are lunging like crazy. The knee's way out over it and it's no problem. But generally speaking, that's considered dangerous for the knee. Don't let people do it. Keep the knee over the ankle. Okay, you got that? That's a very important point. Everybody clear on that? And the heel is never allowed to come off the floor. Do the other leg. Lunge. Draw this back a little bit. Now the lunge. Now lift that heel up. No. The lunge so much that the heel comes up. Lunge just so. She can't even do it. No, it's like that. It's like this. It's like an extension.
Oh,
You like this comes up like that. See how this goes up?
okay.
No. Look at this angle. See, this is up, but look how low and far forward this is.
You have to move your foot.
Well, you know what? Shelly is so good at yoga, she can't demonstrate the incorrect forms. I'm great at demonstrating
Okay.
the incorrect forms. Who knows that if they lock their back leg, if they listen to the teacher and they say that they're going boom into hyperextension? Okay, you know that? Let's do it. In Warrior 2.
It's already there.
It's already, okay, so we're talking about her back knee. Not terrible, not
I know it's
horrible.
supposed to be like that.
Yeah,
You can feel the difference.
Bow it back like that. That hurts, right? Okay, so you understand about hyperextension? We're talking about back here. If I say, hey, firm your back leg as much as you can, Vanessa, she'll bow it back into pain. That's too much. So for her, she has to keep that micro bent, but still engage. It's one of the hardest things to do. But that's what she has to try for. But who will? Let's see how to do it's a Warrior 2. Let's see. You're okay. You're not.
So you don't let.
Do you know Paula Walker? You guys know Paula Walker? Watch her legs. If she's standing there talking to you, she's like this. They're reverse curve.
Oh,
She's
I have
got
that.
severe hyperextension.
I have that.
Yeah. Go into it.
Yo también un poco.
Now straighten your back knee.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Does it hurt or is it okay?
Just a little bit.
You don't want to jam it, okay?
My arms are
No, Will's pretty good too. Suhan, you do it? You hyperextend the back?
Yes.
How about the elbows? Do you hyperextend the elbows? Go into downward dog. You're hyperextending the elbows. Okay. Yeah, we'll check again. All right, do downward dog. So the knees correspond to the elbows. Hyperextension, do downward dog though.
With the elbows correct or incorrect?
With the elbows incorrect. Flip it back. Push back. Oh, that's incorrect. Look at that. Look at her elbows. Never do that. That's horrible. Did you see how she did that? And you all the groan went out? That's it. Do downward dog now. Downward facing dog, yeah. Now do the hyperextended elbows again. Yes, you don't ever want that. See how this is all bowed in and then it turns out? That's horrible. You have to bend your elbows outward a little bit. Yes, like that almost. That's much better, isn't it? Hyperextension people have to bend a little outward, micro bend, and then engage. You have to engage here and here without locking. No, without locking it. But look at her fingers. Are they turned inward or outward? You have to turn those outward more. So that's there's a lot going on. Okay, that's
Because
good.
I'm trying
Sit down.
to.
I see that. No, that's good, and I want you to do that. I want you to engage your muscles without locking the elbows. That's key for people with hyperextension. That's
Then
really
same
good.
thing when I stand up, it's like, you know.
Yeah, these go a little bit back, don't they? Yeah, look at how well she's good at it. She is good at it. See this reversed C right there? That's, you don't want that. Do warrior two. A little more forward with this foot.
Forward.
Like toe, yeah, there you go, toe forward. Pretty, you know, there's some hyperextension issues going on.
So I'm locked.
Don't lock. I don't want you to lock, no. You have to micro bend and then engage without locking it. You lock the muscle, but not the joint. You lock the muscle. Lock that muscle, but no, don't lock the joint.
Micro bend.
Micro bend. Micro bend, I love that. Okay, good. Adriana, you want to give it a try? Ariana. Sorry, Ariana.
Which pose?
Which pose did you say you're bad
Oh,
at?
no,
You can
just when
demonstrate incorrect
my
form.
yoga teacher, like, told me, because I'm always hyperextensive, so the micro bend.
Do it. Go for that. Tell me, show us what you would be doing and what your yoga teacher would say.
In downward dog.
In downward dog, right?
And so I have to go like that.
That's the correct position. You guys over there, if you want to see more, you can walk over here too. You can
But
stand.
I had like.
And what did you do when it was wrong? That looks pretty good. Do you guys think that looks pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay, now do the wrong thing. And does that kind of feel natural to you?
Yeah.
See how she just dumped everything into that elbow joint? That's how you get tendinitis. You don't want that. So good, very good. So this is how demonstrate. Who else knows that they do something incorrectly in a pose and they're trying to fix it? Any pose that we talked about. Do you know of any?
My upward dog.
What do you do?
With I remember talking about my wrist. When I come up, my shoulders are way forward than my wrist, and I can't figure it out.
Okay, I want you to ask Elaine, and maybe next weekend ask Peter Barber and Jason Lauren. This is the time of the teacher training that you have to ask master teachers about all the little stuff that you do wrong, and they'll help you, okay? Let's see what else. What other things to discuss in the alignment of some of these standing ones? Flat feet. Okay, so stand in mountain pose for a sec.
Like, try to roll with the out.
Put your
They're
feet.
naturally like this.
Yeah, that's it. Now just stand there and do what comes natural to you. Do you see how she collapsed her inner arch? Look at her inside of her ankles. They're collapsed. Now move it back towards a neutral position. See how she has to lift or put a little bit more weight on the outer heel, pinky toe. So these are the kind of things that you're going to start to train your eyes to see. It takes a long time. It takes a while. It's better to do it in private lessons, frankly. It's hard to do it in group classes because you're just trying to get the whole thing through.
Correct class and then kind of correct our imperfection for including the poses. Are you going to be critiquing us in the other classes or?
No. In terms of this type of stuff, no. In terms of this, there's no critiquing of this except for when it comes time to teach your 1 hour class, I'll tell you the types of things I want to see in the class. And I want to see, a beginning, middle, and end. I want to have a theme. I want it to be sequenced logically. I want you to project your voice. I want you to walk around the room. I want you to use a couple of names of Sanskrit poses. I want you to use student names. There's certain things I want you to do. And part of that is to say a few things about alignment. Yes, a few things. But no, I'm not going to critique you in every single pose. When you guys come to my class, do I say everything that I know about the alignment of every pose every time we do it?
No.
There's just, you come across like, blah, 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 My feeling is, get them into a position where at least their weight bearing is correct. Where there's weight bearing, they got the alignment correct, right? Maybe give them a couple things. I love this, firm the back leg and bend in lunge. I love saying that. That's a good one for me. And then otherwise at a certain point, I just shut up. And then I say breathe. The music is playing. The pose is having its good effect. It's not my words that are going to make that person feel good. It's the being in the pose. So I step out of the way a little bit with my instruction.
I notice when I'm practicing and a teacher's giving a lot of instruction like that, I get too in my head and it's like sort of overthinking it.
And sometimes you just tune them out and kind of
Yeah, I
do
don't like
you're kind of looking around at what you're doing, but you just quit paying attention to the teacher a little bit. I sometimes find myself doing that because there's a part of yoga that is cerebral. There's a part of yoga that you do want to know, okay, no, what is the correct alignment here? I want to know that. But if the teacher's overly emphasizing that, there's another part of yoga that just feels great to be in the pose. You're happy finally. You know, the music is great. Maybe you're having a wonderful day doing yoga, and you just want to enjoy that. So it's a balance. I think you have to mix it. I wouldn't recommend being too much either way. If anything, I err on the side of letting people just be in the pose. And I want them to breathe. So I always talk about the breathing. So it's not just the physical alignment instructions. I always tell them that I want them to breathe in the pose too. Basically, that's it. I look at somebody in a pose, and I look at where there's weight bearing. Okay, look, first thing to look at is their feet in a standing pose. Correct their feet. If they're standing there like a duck, you know, you got to correct that immediately before you can correct anything. So, and you correct it in a nice way. Oh, let's stand with our feet straight. Look at your feet. Make sure the toes aren't turned outwards. No, they're very straight. Okay. Make sure we're not collapsing into flat-footedness. Just a couple little things like that. And then I get them in a pose, look at their feet. If their feet look pretty good, almost always muscular engagement is encouraged, isn't it? Don't the teachers always tell you to hold muscles that you don't even need to hold in order to do the pose? Stomach bandha, you could remind people to hold their stomach in. Engaging the quadriceps while keeping the knees micro-bent. You talk about that. Then I talk about neutral spine. I move up the body, I take a look. Oh, we in a back bend or a forward bend? Okay, what's the cue that I have to tell the people to do? Talk a little bit about neutral spine. That's my shtick of alignment. Try and teach people fundamentals like that. Okie doke, so this is good. This is excellent. Why don't we... This is the big weekend of learning how to do the poses. Is this helpful for you?
Yes.
I'm sorry for those girls. That's why I hope it helps that we tape some of this, because I don't go back into this too much. I feel that what you're going to say about the poses in Downward Dog, Warrior 2, Warrior 1, all the poses, is a reflection of all the teachers that you've already had, influences that you've had. I'm going to let your personality, I'm not going to really be very strong that you have to use Paul's words for how to, because you're going to go to lots of different people's classes and hear how they teach it, and that might speak truer to the way that you teach, okay? So I don't go back into time and time again telling you how to do Warrior 2, Warrior 1. We'll do it one other time because the girls will be here. We'll go further into sequencing. We'll do a few more sessions like this. Did it help to see other people doing poses? It's really great, right? It's really... Let me see one other. Let's just do one other. Who has not demonstrated? Go for it. Go into downward dog. So he's in downward dog. Okay, take a look around their body. Where is their weight bearing? First place to look, where's their weight bearing? How do the hands look? Pretty good. Which would you say is straight or forward? Her index finger or her middle finger? She's using index finger straight, which is same as me. That's my preference too. Where should she really be pressing her hand? The knuckle of the index finger. Is she? Is it up? She's pressing it. She was pressing down here from the get-go, which is pretty good. Usually people are not that strong in it. Is she blocking her elbows in hyperextension? No. Are you? No. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Go to sit down with the so you don't get too tired for a second. All right? All right, go back into downward dog again. Now, are her hips on the same level? So what would be the hips on the same level here? The pelvic bones, you know these bony ones right here? It's so easy to find them. Are equal distance from the floor. Are they? Okay? Are her hips, so they're level on this? And is one further back than the other? Are they like, is this one further back? So they're level and they're square. So if I put this block right there on her sacrum,
Oh,
Don't move. Don't breathe.
so that's it.
What is it? I can't tell what's in the water.
Okay, drop down, go to child's pose, go to child's pose.
It was open, so
This was on your sacrum like this, and it was balanced. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
So she was level and square. Okay, are your wrists still okay? Are you still okay to demonstrate? Back into downward dog. Right leg up. Open the hip. Are the pelvic bones now equal distance from the floor?
No.
Is her sacrum, where's this? Is this possible at all? No. So they're not square to the floor. It appears, are they the same, are they perfectly stacked on top of each other? Yeah, more or less they're still in that line. All right, now, go to the other leg, and then do the other one. Lift your left leg up. Now, do not open your hip. Keep your left hip squared down like this, so your pelvic points are equal distance. This is still higher. You've got to drop like this, okay? Good. Now, inwardly rotate this, and only keep this heel on. No, you're still cocked out. You're still like this. Turn it in. This heel is on the same level as this sit bone, just like that, right there. Perfect. Now push this in. Is she still sloped, right? You need to drop. Yes, that's better for her. Now push like crazy through this leg. Okay, so she can get back into this position. Does that feel like hips square?
Yeah.
All right, drop down, drop down. Okay, good. Go back, you can go back and sit down. We got you. It's tight on there, yeah, that's where you felt it. So, what's the benefit of when I made her, which was tough for you, Abby? You were still a little wanting to turn this out instead of completely turning. The knee points straight down, the foot points straight down, the hips are level. Am I sagging? Or tell me, am I okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Set the block on there.
and the bottle.
Put the bottle on there. Is it possible? Or is it not level?
There you go.
There you go.
So, that's the spine being symmetrical above the hips because I squared the hips, even though the legs were being asymmetrical. That's rare, but I want you guys to try for that. That's what I want you to be able to do. Then, at certain other times, when you feel like getting a stretch, let it rip, let it open up. Just get a stretch like that at certain other times. But also understand your own body awareness to this. So that's in three-legged dog. Who is really good at Warrior 3?
Depends on the day.
Who hasn't demonstrated? Luis, did you demonstrate yet?
No.
Come on, you try. Okay, so three-legged dog in terms of opening up the hip. Standing splits, Warrior 3, they're all the same in terms of hip opening. You try to keep it square, it's harder in Warrior 3. So he's going to go into, why don't you start with standing splits? Are you pretty good at that? You can do it. Standing split. Okay. Okay. Are his hips level? He's trying. He knows what's coming. He's doing a good job. I would come over here and I'd check the pelvic points. They're pretty much equal distance from the floor. Are they equal distance from the front of the mat? Check it. Is one of his hips a little bit further back than the other?
The left.
The left, he's a little like this, isn't he? I would say he needed to slide. Yes. See how he pushed this forward and we drug this back? That's more square, isn't it? But see, he wants to kind of open up a little bit like that. Okay. Switch. Do the other side. Do the other side. Tight bun. He has tight buns. Buns of steel. Okay. Is he square? Is he square? Look at his right hip. Is it square? His right hip again looks further back, but is it open? He's a little bit like this until he starts to refine it and get into it. Now he's pretty good. What happens? Have you ever seen the person who's really lazy? Drop this. Completely drop this if you can. Yeah. Have you seen this much?
Yeah.
All right, that's good. That's good for you.
One leg of like.
So that's enough. That's excellent. So that's really challenging to keep the hips square in some of those forward bends, like three-legged dog and standing split. And splits. as well, so when you're in these splits, right? So should you keep the hips square or open the hip? It's two different poses. Square is better for alignment if you're trying to keep everything above the waist symmetrical and neutral. That's better for therapeutic yoga. But if you're going to go very far into this pose, what are you going to have to do? You're going to open this hip back like a ballerina. You're going to open that way. Who's a dancer girl who does that? Opens that way back.
I do.
You guys can do that? Yeah, you open the hip way back to go far into the splits, right? Because that's ballet. Did you say ballet? Ballet, ballerinas, that's how they get the extension. Figure skaters and stuff like that. But, say somebody came to yoga with the bad back. That kind of asymmetrical intensity is what's aggravating it. Those people with the bad back, they're not really allowed to do standing splits like this. This actually, I was told by a student of mine, she went to a chiropractor, and she showed him the stuff that was hurting her back. And she showed him how she was doing three-legged dog. And she goes, well, we do this one a lot. And he goes, never, never, never do that, okay? It destabilizes the sacroiliac, the sacrum. It pulls on one side and loosens the other. So you might say, well, then we do both sides. But there are people, women, who are flexible women, who can very much go far into the pose, but they can also destabilize easily. Sharon is like that. Sharon Luma, who's going to teach us. She was flexible. She could just go, oh, back and boom. She could do anything because she was really mobile back here. And at first, you think it's a blessing in yoga because you can do all this stuff. But then, after you go very, very far, as a young person, not showing off, but trying to do these poses as far as you can, you dump everything in your lower back. It's destabilized. There's no solidity, and it hurts.
Actually, like when I'm doing the lounge, or I get, frequently corrected by my teacher and neutral spine, because also the pincha mayurasana, at the beginning,
Right, you'll
I
jump
couldn't
over.
because
Yeah. So those of you who are tight, it's in a way, you're less susceptible to injury actually by being tight. You can't go as far as poses, but. Okay, now those of you who are very flexible, the other good news is you can get stronger. You can stabilize. That's why we do so much stabilization of this and holding the bondage and stuff. All right, so let's see. I think we can make it. I'll tell you what, we'll do a little pranayama and then a relaxation, okay? And then maybe, I'll teach now for 20 minutes. Pranayama, which is the breathing that we're going to do. And then we're going to lay on our back. You want to turn the air off, or you want to use the blankets? Grab a blanket. And you're going to sit, at first you're going to sit on your mat or your bolster to do the breathing exercises. Then we're going to go straight into laying on our back with the blanket, and that's going to lead to 10 minutes of relaxation. Then we'll have a little break, and then we'll go to the other class, okay? All right, so this is going to take you to the promised land of feeling good. Do you guys want to go to the promised land of feeling good?
Yes.
The promised land of feeling good? Does non-dualism take you to the promised land of feeling good?
No.
It doesn't? When I talk about feeling good, I'm talking about pleasure. I'm talking about duality. It gives you peace. It can give you peace, but it doesn't necessarily make you feel good. Feel good. So, but does yoga, breathing exercises and relaxation and restorative yoga take you to the promised land of feeling good?
Yeah.
It does. Breathing exercises and asana deliver the effect that we want, very much so. Grab a blanket. Who else needed one? I think it is. You gonna use it next? needed an extra blanket? Everybody got one?
Suave. Pues después se lo
One
trae.
blanket.
O ya me va a preguntar.
I think there's also
I don't think they're
Dijo que va a
class, no, I
preguntar,
don't
entonces
believe
te voy a pasar.
everything's happening.
Después.
This is gonna be perfect. We're gonna do a little, I'm gonna teach you guys a little, maybe 20-minute session now that's comprised of 10 minutes of breathing exercises and 10 minutes of relaxation on your back. You're gonna feel very calm and great, and then you're still gonna have 10 minutes of break before that other class to kind of get set up in there, okay? How did the day go fast yesterday, or did it go slow?
It's been like a really relaxing weekend. Did a lot of stuff over
It's relaxing,
there.
good.
Like falling asleep.
I feel like today was.
I definitely want her to give you a class that you feel good. I felt like last Sunday, after we did the yin yoga, remember we did the yin poses, and then the legs up the wall, and then we relaxed? I felt like that was a very relaxing.
I lived floating.
And
I was floating.
you're floating, though, yeah. Felt good, right? A lot of pleasure.
Very.
Those are good. That's where you can go and when you join a group that's a little more involved than the 1-hour yoga session.
The yin yoga was really emotional.
Yeah.
Holding those poses,
Yeah.
I felt like I was gonna start crying.
Oh, sure, definitely. It's intense.
It was
It's a
like
lot.
harder than the power yoga.
Yeah, I believe you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so get ready to do the breathing exercises. 4.4. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the inhale 4, hold 4, exhale 4. Unless you felt that was too easy. Were you able to easily do that? It was like frustratingly too easy? Pretty easy. Okay, about the right level. Who felt it was about the right level? Okay. Who felt they could do more? You could do 5. Okay, so about half an hour. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do the first 3-4 rounds with the 4, then we'll switch to the 5. If you can't quite do it, just fake it, get through it, okay? And then right after we do the breathing, you're going to be laying on your back. So make sure your bolster's around and your blanket's around, and you're going to go